Hi, welcome to part 1 of my review featuring What Lies Beneath the Darkness. This is a semi-competitive role-playing game. You play it without a game master. The players participate as horrors that have been hired by different factions. So you're going to be carrying out your objectives depending on your faction. Sometimes those objectives are going to clash with the objectives of other players. And you can also play this as solo, you have solo rules. Now let's talk about the quality of the PDF. When you purchase What Lies Beneath the Darkness, you have several files: the character sheet, the empty matrix, the quick reference, and the document itself. So things will become more clear as I talk about this role-playing game. The illustrations are great. They are quite surreal. They look like some sort of AI-fueled dream. It's very weird, abstract, but at the same time it expresses a lot about the setting. The writing is great. Everything is clear and well explained. The organization is also excellent. The graphic design is also quite effective, expressing elegance, decadence, and horror. And the document is fully bookmarked, so you will have no trouble at all when it comes to navigating this PDF. Overall, the quality is amazing. Now, let's talk about the contents. Everything starts with the city, Ravenswatch, one of the largest cities of our time, ever pulsating under the drums of the new factories. The dim light of the gas lamps, through the perennial mist that engulfs the alleys, gives the Gothic architecture looming contours that fit folk tales about creatures of the night. Beyond the veil that keeps common citizens in oblivion, factions employ all resources available in a never-ending battle for control, and that includes us. We are the horrors, beings divided between humanity and the supernatural. Our human facade is useful for our masters, since it allows us to navigate society undetected. But it is our dark powers that interest them most. Our very nature makes us a valuable asset, but not valuable enough for them to care if we end up swallowed by the darkness that we carry within. And that's our struggle, deployed to fight among ourselves, a silent war that is not ours. We live in an internal battle between our human links and our dark instincts, between what we want and what our faction demands. What Lies Beneath the Darkness is a gaslamp fantasy game about intrigue and struggle. Horror fantasy, I would say, because you play as a horror employed by a faction to expand their dominance over the victorianesque city of Ravenswatch, while you fight to balance the human and supernatural natures that inhabit you. During gameplay, you have themes such as intrigue and politics, that is, in-game politics, supernatural forces, occultism, personal horror, religion, grim magic. This is not a game about being the oppressor. Characters are at the bottom of their factions, and although they fight to climb the ladder of their organizations, they never use their position to replicate the oppression they are subjected to by their masters. You are the resistance, fighting from within. This takes inspiration from Dark Streets and Darker Secrets, Trophy Dark and Urban Shadows. And of course, because these are potentially disturbing themes, a Session 0 is a must. It's better to come into agreement when it comes to handling the elements of the game before the game actually starts. To play this role-playing game, you need between 1 to 6 players. As I mentioned, you can play this as a solitaire experience. You need some 6-sided dice. 1 is fine, but 2 per player is ideal. You also need a copy of the character sheet, an agenda, and the matrix for each character. Now let's talk about the solo and multiplayer modes. In solo mode, you create your character and follow the game loop alone to complete the missions your faction gives you. Anytime the rules mention the group, simply ignore it and replace it with you or yourself. In multiplayer mode, each player creates their character and their own missions. Since each character belongs to a different faction, you don't play as a party. Instead, on their turn, a player frames a scene and a challenge for their character as they pursue their own agenda. The other players are invited to portray non-player characters and suggest obstacles, descriptions, and complications. So the semi-competitive nature is quite evident. When a player finishes their turn, the next loop starts with a different character, following the same procedure. Characters might cross paths and even have scenes together if their players agree that it makes sense, and it is most interesting for the story at that moment. In a way, multiplayer mode can be viewed as a shared solo experience, with independent storylines that may or may not intertwine and feedback from each other. This characteristic also makes this game well suited for play-by-post and other forms of asynchronous play. And how do you play this game? You follow 11 simple steps. First, you read the city, the agenda, and go over sensitive topics. Then you create your character by picking one trait from each of the 6 categories. Then you create your mission. Following that, you roll on the matrix to see how the mission starts. Then you establish a challenge that needs to be overcome here. Next, frame the scene, adding elements and details. Following that, perform your actions and roll some dice if you want to. Then you check the oracle anytime you have a question. When you feel the scene is over, roll the next prompt on the matrix. Then, when you feel the mission is complete, check your fulfilled goals and claim your rewards. After all of that, you start a new mission. And this concludes this part of the review. In the next part, we are going to talk about rules. So, this role-playing game feels a bit like a World of Darkness sort of situation, but here you are kind of like fighting for your own advancement and survival without being so much like the shadow government aspect of things. There is a constant struggle between the different factions, and not a single one of them has the upper hand in this conflict. I really like the semi-competitive aspect of this RPG. You're going to make sense of situations, you're going to see which scenes interlock with other scenes, how some agendas may clash with the agendas between the different player characters. As the game proceeds with a subtle artificial intelligence of sorts, but there is also input from the other players in your own missions. And it's also great that you can play this as a solo experience. Thank you for watching this part of the review, and thank you for your likes and your comments. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know. And thank you so much to those of you that are going the extra mile to support the channel. If anyone else wishes to further support the channel, the information on how to do that will be in the description below. Once again, thank you, and see you later.